Finally, a fourth federal level stimulus check for low-income individuals in the nation has been released in the Senate. And also, stick with me till the end. I'm gonna give you all the details on this new bill that has been presented. Who's going to be eligible, how much your dependents will get, all the details released on this fourth federal level stimulus checks that has just been unveiled. Now, as I mentioned, this is a fourth federal level check. It's going to be for $600. Now, this is the first one that we have seen from the Senate, and I've let you know here on the channel that it's very likely as we get closer to those midterm elections. We're going to be hearing a whole lot more about checks as members of Congress that want to stay in power are going to be presenting new bills to try to persuade voters to keep them in power. Now also, we recently just had a proposal released in the House of Representatives. Republican representative pushes for $1,000 stimulus check for all Americans. So this is coming back just in the past week. We're starting to see things pick up once again with stimulus checks on the federal level for everybody. And you guys, we're hearing that this is going to be needed. And one of the main contributing factors for people bringing this back to the table is that gasoline could top $5 a gallon this summer, causing more pain for consumers. The war with Russia and Ukraine is causing oil and gas prices to increase, which is causing food prices to increase. We've already got record high inflation has been this high for 40 years with lockdowns in China, supply chain issues, and assortment of different things. And they're saying we need to provide the American people with some form of relief, and now a great time during midterm elections. But with that being said, you guys, let's go ahead and dive right in. Today, a gallon of gas costs $4.52, nearly $1.50 more than a year ago, from food to clothing to rent. Wherein transportation expenses are pushing already rising prices even higher. But big oil has different priorities. Rather than increasing business, investment, or production, these companies have almost uniformly pumped profits directly to their executives and wealthy shareholders in February, even before the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and as the gas prices skyrocketing. In the March 2022 survey, the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas asked oil executives for the primary reason that publicly traded oil companies were restraining production despite higher oil prices. The number one answer they gave, reflecting the view of nearly 60% of those surveyed, was that it was, quote, investor pressure to maintain capital discipline. To put it another way, they were saying that they don't want to produce more oil because more production will hasten the end of high oil prices and exorbitant investor profits. Instead of resuming the production they cut in 2020, oil companies have kept output constrained, turning a 50% increase in prices at the pump over the past year into record-setting profits. And make no mistake, our domestic producers have the capacity to produce more. Indeed, domestic crude oil output is below 2019 level. In fact, just last month, ExxonMobil announced it would triple its stock buybacks this year, and next to $30 billion and $30 billion. It is an astonishing number, and one of the things about buyback is that it essentially raises the price of the stock. And if you're an executive, those major competing compensation is stock options. You're giving yourself a huge raise, and that's part of this to self-angry aggrandizement. It's something that does not square, I think, with the feelings of the American people and also the needs of the American people. And it's clear that the oil companies aren't interested in helping Americans in their own. So the federal government needs to step in. We need responsible solutions that bring down prices and help families pay for the basics. We must use every tool at our disposal. I've introduced the Food and Fuel Family Saving Act, which will provide most households with a $600 per person, specifically to cover higher gas and groceries costs this year. My bill will be fully paid for, targeted to those families making under $80,000, and will also ease medium and long-term inflation by crafting the fair tax code. Instead of waiting for inflation to disappear, it will provide immediate real to help to Americans. Senator Whitehouse is introducing legislation to govern some of those windfall profits that oil companies are handing out as dividends and buybacks back to consumers. These are important short-term efforts that will help Americans struggling with higher costs. But to truly lower costs in the long term, we must make the transition to clean energy and break our reliance on big oil and hostile foreign actors. I'm proud that in Rhode Island we're leading the way on offshore wind, a good renewable resource that when deployed will lower costs of consumers. And the bipartisan infrastructure law is also making key investments to advance this transition, including over $60 billion primarily for new major clean energy demonstration and deployment programs. The president has been calling for additional funding to enable this clean energy future. We need to package that includes tax credits and grants that would make clean energy, clean vehicles, and other clean technologies more affordable and competitive. And if we do these things, we'll make ourselves less vulnerable to the whims of oil companies and cartels who depend on Americans paying more than that what they should. Will make our world cleaner, while lower costs and finally achieve the energy independence that we've wanted all along. One of the many lessons of the last 2 years is that we cannot rely on oil for plentiful, affordable energy. It is clear that allowing our energy needs to be held hostage by leaders like Vladimir Putin and organizations like OPEC is dangerous. But placing our faith in big oil is equally foolhardy given their preoccupation with profits over people. As we battle inflation, it is the American people, non-executives and wealthy shareholders who should be the focal point of our energy and economic policy. Link in the description below. It says, with inflation at a 40-year high, food and fuel family saving acts would give millions of Americans $600 usable only for food and gas. So there are requirements on this. They want it to be focused on gas and food, not just for anything. Also, it says, what is this bill included? Well, the Food and Fuel Family Saving Act would give millions of Americans $600 to be used only for food and gasoline. The amount of the credit would also be reduced for those making above $40,000. Children and dependents would not receive the money directly, but those who claim them as dependents will receive an additional $600 for each dependent, so $600 for individuals and $600 for dependents. Similar to the second stimulus check that we saw, non-citizens would be eligible for the funds, so you have to be an American citizen to receive these stimulus checks. Now, what supporters argue that the legislation provides much-needed relief on two key spending areas, as prices surging shielding the most disadvantaged from much of the economic effects. Hardworking Americans are not at fault for these global crises, Senator Ray said on the Senate floor while introducing the bill. Yet these households, which often put a large share of their income towards basic necessities, are being forced to bear the burden of higher costs. The average American household would receive about $1,500, using estimates from economists. This payment should cover an additional $183 for the average family that we will spend on monthly food and fuel costs for the rest of 2022. According to Senator Reid, in other words, our legislation would ensure that households can put food on the table and gas in the car this year, and as you heard in his speech, he also said that this will not add to debt and inflation is going to be paid, so they're going to be able to distribute these funds out and not increase or exacerbate the situation we have with inflation in our economy.